Hey, everybody, and welcome aboard the Blue Heart webcast. Well, as you can see by my little runner at the bottom down there, I want to be very, very grateful to our sponsors, my publisher, blue360media.com and medicalessentialdiagnostics.com, two really great companies that really support law enforcement. And I really want to thank them for supporting our show and making sure we can get our voices out there to you. So with me today, as you can see, is Detective Ron Osadacz from the Aberdeen, New Jersey PD. Ron's been on for 11 years, and he reached out to me, and we had a nice conversation about what Ron does besides serving his community. He serves our community, our law enforcement community, in a really important way. And this is a topic that we don't always talk about. Some people are uncomfortable with it, but I'm going to tell you from personal experience, you need to understand why you need life insurance. Now, on its face, it seems very, very common sense. You got to have life insurance, right? Something happens to you, who's going to take care of your family? What are they going to do? So in my own life, when I was a young man, I was 14 years old. My father was 37. He had his own business, very successful. Everything was great. Back in 1976, we were on a hunting trip, and my father had a massive heart attack out of nowhere. Had no idea he had this problem, widowmaker, and the poor guy dies on the trail in North Jersey in the mountains. Well, that left me and my mother and my 12-year-old brother on our own. And at the time, my father had he had $25,000 worth of life insurance. Now, you say to yourself, that's not a lot, but go back to 1976. It was enough to get us through 4 or 5 years, but he also had mortgage insurance to pay off the house, and he had dropped it for some unknown reason. I don't know. My mother didn't even know why they did it, but that would have been a policy that if either one of them died, it paid off the mortgage. That would have been awesome, right, for our family. So we did struggle a little bit, and I remember saying, gee, it'd be great if Dad had $1 million worth of life insurance. We would be able to survive a little better. Well, we fast forward into my life as an adult, having had that experience and being a law enforcement officer, which part of our job, we carry a gun, we carry sticks, we drive cars, we drive fast, and we die, right? Our job, we die on our job. Either it's at the hands of some nefarious criminal, we get hit by a car, all kinds of things. So you want to make sure your family is taken care of. And that's why when I met Ron and we had this conversation, I said, is this exciting? Is this about car chases or drug raids? No, it's not. But it's something that's very, very important that you need to consider and say to yourself, do I have insurance, life insurance? Do I have enough life insurance? So I put $750,000 life insurance on myself about 20 years ago, figuring if anything happened to me, my kids were almost all grown, but my wife would have $750,000 plus the house, plus the New Jersey police pension life insurance. She'd be okay. She'd have about $1 million to get her through. Plus she'd have 55-60% of my pension. So we figured that would be good. We didn't have anything on her. We had no life insurance on my wife. And this past summer, out of the blue, out of nowhere, perfectly healthy woman, got sick, developed blood cancer, and within 6 weeks, she was gone. I lost her this summer, just out of nowhere. None of us saw it coming. And you know how much that funeral cost? That funeral was $17,000, $18,000. And then the repast was $6,000. And then the plot was $8,000. And then there's so many expenses. It was about $30-something thousand just to take care of my wife when she died. So I was really figuring out, how am I going to do this? Maybe I'll use my home equity. I'll do something to pay for all this. What am I going to do? I have to pay for it. And then I remembered at my employer, they had an option that you could check off a box and you could get extra eye coverage for your eyes, for me and her, for like $5 a month. We could get hearing coverage for like $5 a month. And I took a $35,000 life insurance policy on her for like $3 a month. It came through the company, and I forgot all about it. And I was sitting here right at this desk trying to figure out what I'm going to do, how I'm going to pay for all this at a time when you're not thinking clearly. Grief is a terrible thing. It really fogs your mind. And I was going through my paperwork and I saw this and I called up and said, do I still have this policy? And they said, oh yeah, absolutely, you do. Well, within a week, they sent me a check for $35,000, and that paid those expenses. That allowed me to live, to function through all this horror. So that's what I want to tell you. And I brought Ron on because I want him to tell you, how do you get this life insurance? How do you figure out how much you need? You're doing this for your family, and make sure you include your spouse, because who knows? We always thought it would be me that would go. We never thought it would be my wife. And it turns out, it disrupts your entire life, your family, and not having enough money to handle it is really, really tough. So, Ron, that was a long spiel I gave there. Welcome aboard the Blue Heart webcast.
No, first and foremost, thank you for having me. And again, that's a horrible story. And unfortunately, it plays out far too often where no one plans for a death. No one plans to lose a loved one. Nobody wants to talk about this. It's an uncomfortable topic. I don't even like thinking about it sometimes. But I got into it because I realized that in our profession, there was a clear need for people to get this information from somebody that they can trust and appreciate the information that they're getting. So when I looked into it, a lot of people in this industry are not cut the same. Sometimes they try to sell things that you might not necessarily need. The reality of it is, though, is that everybody needs some kind of coverage. I've been going around to different police departments and PBAs all over the state. When I started this, I've been doing this now for 2 years. And the first question I normally ask when I get in the room is, if you were to die tomorrow, who depends on your income, and how long can that person survive off of your income? And a lot of the times people, it's the first time they thought about it, because no one wants to think, especially in this profession, we're all supermen and superwomen. We don't think about death. And then you could see their faces start to change and it kind of hits them. And, I encourage everybody listening to this now to think, if you're the main breadwinner in your family, or even if you're not, if you were to die tomorrow or pass away under tragic circumstances, how long can your spouse survive without your income? Not only are they now dealing with your death, which is tragic, they have to mourn, they have to, emotionally heal, they have to financially heal. So my goal is to at least take one of those prongs out and have the financial part of it covered, where you don't even have to think about it.
I think that's great. And that's why I want my brothers and sisters out there to understand this. And I think something you said there, Ron, is very important. Who can you trust? Okay, who can you trust? They're like anything, anybody that's selling anything, you got to figure that their bottom line is, hey, the more I can sell, the bigger I can upsell you. Go try and buy a car. They want to upsell you, and at the end, another $1,000 for stuff they're going to put under their car. It's confusing, and it's difficult for people sometimes to trust someone who's selling something. So having somebody like yourself that comes from our profession, somebody that you can trust your life with, you can trust your advice. So when you talk to these officers, do you find that they understand how much do they need? I thought you made a good point. How would your spouse continue on for 10 years without you there? Do they have to go back to work? Do they have the skills to maintain the lifestyle you've created for your family?
Absolutely. And sometimes people don't think about that until it's brought to their forefront of their mind and it's brought to their attention. And normally how I do it, and I know how other representatives of life insurance companies do it, they try to sell cookie cutter policies where, you're blanketly covered for $2 million or $3 million. Let's divide it up. Not everyone's created equal. Not everybody's financial situation is the same. You might not need that much coverage. You might need more coverage based on what you have going on. And I always tell people, if your if your life insurance consultant is not sitting with you at least once a year to review your policy, some policies could be set it and forget it. If you want to open a policy for your child, which we could talk about in a little bit, there's other ways to play with life insurance to make it benefit you outside of just a death benefit. Those policies could be set it and forget it. But if you are someone who is obviously an adult, you're working, your income stream's changing, you might have got promoted. If your life insurance consultant is not sitting down with you at least once a year to review your policy, to review the changes in your life, that's a red flag right there. Over the past 2 weeks, I've reviewed 2 policies that we're actually able to correct for people. That the guy didn't do anything wrong, but he was just trying to, close the file and be done with it. Living benefits are a big thing too, which I'll touch on in a little bit. But some places sell living benefits and they sell it as a cookie cutter thing. What I touch on is you're not only going to be covered as a death benefit, you're going to have if God forbid you to get dementia, Alzheimer's, heart attack, or a stroke. This is almost like a supplemental to an AFLAC plan if it's structured properly, where you can pull money out of this from a living benefit perspective as well. So kind of to circle it back around, if you're not meeting with your life insurance representative once a year, then they already forgot about you. It's just too cookie cutter for them. Every year we should be sitting down and discussing what changed in your life, what's different. Did you have another child? Because that changes your expenses, you know? And sometimes the set it and forget it, it doesn't really work.
Right. And I think some good points you make, especially for the younger officers that are listening to us out there. You know, you do think you're great. I'm good. I'll deal with this later on. I have 4 grown children. My oldest son is an attorney. He's 40. My next son is 31. He's a union carpenter. My daughter is a writer. She's 26. And my youngest son, he's just graduated college. He's 22 and he got married. And I talked to them. I said, did you see what happened to me and your mother just now? And thank goodness we had that. Now, it wouldn't have destroyed me to use my home equity, but that home equity is there to pay for other weddings, to pay for my grandchildren, to pay for my life as I go off as an older person. I'm going to sell my house. I'm going to get that money out of there. It's something we don't think of until it happens to us. And you also made another point. You know, when we were in the hospital and we were watching, you know, the situation take place with my poor wife, there were other families in there, and they had elderly parents who had nothing left, and the bills were going to go through the roof. And, you know, just talking to people, they tell you their problems. You know, I have no life insurance on Harry, or Muriel has no life. I don't know how we're going to pay for all of this. And then there were people who had children who were in this hospital who were dying. And you figure a young couple, you know, go drop $30,000 on a funeral. Unless you have all those kind of resources, nobody wants to think about a child dying. But I got to tell you, I was in that hospital for 3 weeks. I saw people of every age dying every single day. And I saw the families devastated. And when you think about that, you're not going to be able to function if something like that happens to you. It sucks all the wind out of the room. And to be thinking about, how do you pay for this? How do I go on? How does my wife and children continue in the lifestyle that I created for them? You know, okay, we had this beautiful house, nice. Now they got to move out and live in an apartment somewhere because that's all the money you got, right? So talk about that a little bit, Ron, with the kids.
And that's 100% true. And I have a personal experience with this as well. I lost my father when I was 8 years old, and my mother had life insurance on my father, and he had life insurance. And we were able, I was, you know, born and raised in Marlboro at the time when I'm 8. Obviously, it was a tragic experience for me. The last thing that my mom wanted to do, and the last thing that I, to be honest, wanted to do, was up and move. And because of that policy that was in place, she was able to pay off the house. She was able to secure herself to the point that we could stay in the house that I grew up in. So you don't have all that change all at once. And to your point, you know, when you don't expect a death to come, the last thing you really want to be doing is calling up to figure out at that point how to pull money out of the house with the home equity line, how to, you know, handle the paperwork. It's not a simple process. I mean, it relatively, it's not horrible, but it's not that simple. Where if life insurance policy, all you have to do is prove death, unfortunately, and then you're going to get your check mailed to you, no questions asked. So it is a lot easier. And jumping back, you know, to the kids as well. So there's different types of policies. There's whole and term. And I always tell people, look, if somebody depends on your income, at the very least, we have to get you set up with a term policy. Whole life might not be for everybody because it is a little bit more expensive. I personally like it because you're at some point in time, you're going to get something back from that. Where a term, you're kind of betting on yourself that you don't have to use it over the 10, 20, 30-year period that you're covered, which is great. But going back to whole life with children, if I have a whole life policy on my son, I have a $250,000 policy on my son. He's 5 years old. Knock on wood, I hope to God I never have to use it. I'm using that as an investment tool. Now, in probably by the time my son is 25, 30 years old, there'll be enough money in that policy that, one, I can pull from it, take money out as a loan, which you can do with a whole life policy, to give to him to purchase his first house, to help pay for a wedding, any of the above. Or I can just give him the $250,000 policy. He'll be young enough at that point, and God willing, healthy enough that his rating at that point in time will be cheap enough anyway for him to just get a new policy. But he'll have $250,000 sitting there for us to use and for us to cover him with. So when you're thinking about life insurance for your kids, that's definitely an uncomfortable topic. And I kind of broach it that way all the time. But there is such a powerful tool in that to be able to set them up for the future, to gift them that money in their first down payment of their house or whatever you want to use it for your kids.
Right.
which is it's a good avenue. It's just another tool in the toolbox for finances to be able to do it. Does it replace a 529 for college? No, I think a 529 plan is good, but you're also playing the market on a 529. Where whole life, you're going to see when you speak to me, I could show you exactly based on the health rating how much money you're going to have in that policy 20 years from now. You can't really do that in the stock market, so it's a good backstop.
And I think the other thing about this, the discomfort that people have thinking about this, insurance is really a tool in your tool chest of your life, right? You buy a house, you get a mortgage, you get car insurance. Life insurance is, while it's uncomfortable, we have to, be adults in the room and say, things happen. Things happen when we're young, they happen when we're older. And when you're talking about a whole life policy, that's one that you pay into, and at the end you can pull money out of it. It is an investment kind of. A term life policy, and I didn't know this back in the day. I said, okay, well, how much can I afford? Well, what I could afford in a whole life policy was like $50,000 or $60,000 worth of life insurance. But then my agent said, but if I get you a 20-year term, it's the same price for 20 years, and you can get $700,000. And I said, so you mean if I die, they get $700,000 for the same price? He goes, yeah, it's a different vehicle. What do you want to do with it? Well, I wanted to make sure they had money. And I could afford what was available. So I got that term policy. So there's a lot of different things out there, and you need to talk to an agent. That's why I brought Ron on. You should reach out to Ron. Recently, I met my friend, Matt Sharon. He's a retired lieutenant at a Deal PD. He is now a broker for homeowners insurance, right? So you say, what's a broker or an agent? Well, a broker can find you the best deal everywhere. An agent only represents one particular company. So, Ron, how do you work? What is your status in this industry?
So how I do it is I'm the same way. I'm a broker. So what I do is I'm licensed with a few different life insurance agencies that I trust. I know their processes. So what I normally do and how I normally started is I would take a call, or we meet face to face. I get all the information I need to know on you. I go over your health history, your finances, if you're looking at whole or term vehicles. And what I do then is, instead of just putting all of my eggs in one basket, I do have one insurance company that I like to use more than others, but all of them are really good. I take all of your information and I customize the plan that's right for you. I don't sit and just say, okay, I'm based on some compensation of some insurance guys, I'm going to put all my business in this one policy because it gets me things back. That doesn't necessarily make sense. I'm trying to build a reputation. One, if I'm dealing with cops, I want my reputation to always be good because I care about this community. I don't ever want to have anybody overpaying or have a policy that doesn't fit them. And also, some people have different things with their health, right? So if you take the information with your health and we kind of go through it, I now, being in this industry for 2 years, I could figure out, okay, based on what you're telling me here, if I put you over here, we have a better odds of getting you a better rate with this product. Or if I know you want to go for a whole policy where your living benefits are more important to you, that's great. Now I know I have to put you here. So I think the benefit of dealing with multiple insurance companies is you have the clarity to be able to say, it's not just cookie cutter. It's based on what the client needs. And that goes back to almost what we said at the beginning, where if your life insurance guy is not sitting with you once a year or trying to communicate with you once a year to see what's changed in your life, you're not really being taken care of, because so much changes sometimes over a month period, let alone a year. You have a different child, you have another child, you need different coverage options, And the one thing I will say too, going back, is I know I just did a presentation recently where a couple of younger cops were in the room, and they kind of said, well, I'm 20 years old. Why do I need life insurance? And that's something I completely understand. I didn't end up getting my first policy until I was 28, right? But when you sit and you look at it, if you're planning on having a family in the future, or your circumstances are going to change, if you're 19 years old, right, your health rating is going to be so great that you want to start paying into that right away, because you're going to be paying pennies on the dollar opposed to what I paid when I was 28. So life insurance is rated on two things: your health and your age. And if you get locked in early with us or with me, you have a 15-year conversion most of the time in these policies where I can convert you to whole. So what that means as well is, if I get you at 21 years old, or let's just use 20 for a round number, it's easy to do the math on it, 20 years old, and I get you locked into a term policy, and God forbid at year 13, okay, you get diagnosed with cancer. I can take your policy, I can convert it to a whole policy with no medical exam, no questions asked. We're just going to go based on the age that you are at that moment. And that's huge for you, because unfortunately, if you get diagnosed with a chronic condition, cancer, lymphoma, any of those, your insurability is going to be hard moving forward. One, companies might deny you. And two, if they do approve you, you're going to be paying double what you would have paid if you just did this maybe 2 years earlier.
Right. And I think just from what you're saying there, most of us don't understand any of that. That's why you need a guy like Ron. And first of all, you can trust him. He's a brother. He does what we do, right? So he can guide you. And I like the fact that he's a broker. He can look at different places to find what's good for you, not just what's good for him. And that's, nothing against agents. They like a company and they think their company is good and they want to sell you those products. The broker can find what's best for you. So I think this is something you need to wrap your head around. You need to do the right thing and make sure, I was telling you I have 4 kids. Well, my oldest son is an attorney and he has life insurance. He got it probably when he was 35. He decided, yeah, you're right. I have kids now. I should get life insurance. My middle son, he's just got a policy. The 2 younger ones, they don't have it yet. And, they're saying, well, what's the deal? I got my first policy. My first big policy, I was probably 30. It was a 20-year term. And it got me to 50. Now, I was still extremely healthy by 50. And my agent came and said, hey, okay, your policy's come up. What do you want to do? I said, well, chances are between now and 70, I could have a health problem and die. How do we re-up it? Well, we re-upped it and I increased the amount of money, right? Because my lifestyle had changed. Our house had changed. We had more things that my wife would need money for. So the difference in the premium was not that much to put me for another 20 years. And she would have had this great payoff, had it been me and not her. So Ron, how do people get in touch with you? Tell us how to get in touch with you.
So for anybody here, what I'd like to do is, obviously I want this to feel like a family environment. I'm going to give my cell phone. Please just call me at any point in time. And my phone's always on and we can communicate that way. At 732-546-8407. That's my personal cell. And I do take this very seriously. I take it very personally because of my story, because of other stories that I've heard. So call me anytime. And I would love to get the process started because it's something that every day that goes by where you don't have it, you're gambling that you're going to be okay. And
okay, and give that number again and slow it down a little bit, and we'll put all the information in the show information too. But just slow down and everybody get a pen. Gives you a minute to pick up a pen. Go ahead. What's that number? It's
732-546-8407, and you can text me. You can call me anytime. Just obviously give me your name and what you want to talk about, or leave me a message, and I'll get back to you. Very quickly.
Excellent. Do you have an email address they can reach out to, or?
I do as well. It's a little bit confusing. It's Osadacz_Ron at nlgroupmail.com. And I'll send that to you. We can put that below too.
Yeah, because I'll put that in the show information so people can reach out to you. Ron, I want to thank you for being here. I think this is important. We can talk about drug raids and car chases all day long, but when it comes down to it, we are human beings. We are husbands and wives. We are families, we are fathers, children. It's about life. And unfortunately, life is expensive. And if something happens to you or one of your family members, you want to make sure that money is not an obstacle of you trying to survive and get through something, which can be absolutely horrible. So, Ron, thank you very much for being here. And like I said, I'll put all this information up in the show, and be a part of the solution, not a part of the problem, everybody. And be careful out there. This is Lieutenant Joe, Blue Heart Webcast. Now, remember, I'm supposed to say, what am I supposed to say? Like, subscribe, share, all that kind of stuff. Tell people about what's going on here so that, we can stick our community together. All right. Ron, see you around.
Thank you, LT. I appreciate it, sir.